Hello, my beautiful buds. Welcome back to my channel, Sprouts with Joy. My name is Joy, and if you like to talk about plants, you're in the right place. I need to take an obligatory sip of my coffee. It's December. We're at the end of the year. I'm stating the obvious. But if you're new here, at the end of each month, I enjoy talking about plants that really captured my attention that month. And you know, it just gives me an excuse to feature plants that I'm really loving and share them with you guys. So buckle in. We only have a few plants today. And that's largely because if you watched my updates video that just went up recently, things are looking a little bit rough in this household. I mean, a lot of my plants are doing well, and I'm about to highlight some that are particularly, they just have been really catching my eye a lot. But a lot of my plants, I'm just like behind on chores, or they're suffering from pests, or just generally not doing as great because it's winter time and they're dormant. But these plants are some of the exceptions. So the first plant I want to talk about is my stromanthe triostar. Oh my goodness. So this plant isn't a plant that I fixate on super frequently because it's sitting at the top of my greenhouse cabinet, kind of towards the back of the cabinet, right by the window. So it's just not always in my direct line of vision. It's behind a couple of other plants. However, every time I take it out to water it, or I happen to talk about it in a video, like going through and updating you guys on my plants or whatever, just my jaw drops because oh my word, this plant has come a long way, and I don't even know why it likes me so much now, because for a while there, it hated me, hated my guts. It was so not working for me in my home. Oh, when was it? Maybe about a year ago, I want to say, it started turning around. And ever since that turning point a year ago, and I don't even fully know what changed, it just exploded with growth, and it has been beautiful. I mean, this plant in general, I've always been attracted to its leaves and just the colors. I mean, take a moment. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. I think that most people think that that's the case, but a lot of people do struggle with this plant. And I was also in that camp for a hot minute there, but man, it's so rewarding when it is actually healthy and doing well. And I think the thing that did it for me was that, I kept up with repotting it because I think it declined a lot when it was root bound. It does not prefer to be extremely root bound. I water it consistently. I don't let it get super parched. I don't really let the leaves curl in super dramatically. It does get mealybugs occasionally. And I think the thing that really did it in originally when it was super unhappy was being root bound and getting spider mites. So it's pretty sensitive to spider mites in particular. The mealybugs, it gets on and off, but I treat them. I take care of it when I see them pop up. And it hasn't really seemed to skip a beat on account of the mealybug. And it is in really decent lighting. It's right by a north-facing window, but I also have several grow lights in this room, and it does seem to like a healthy dose of light. And I would say of all of the plants that I own that are in the Marantacea family, this one seems to like light the most. Because a lot of the plants in that family, you can get away with lower light situations and they can still thrive and grow, or even medium light. But this one in particular, I don't know if it's because the colors are so vibrant or what, but I think stromanthe, it does definitely appreciate more light. So overall, I'm just shocked at how much this has grown, and it's continued to grow so much. I'm probably gonna need to repot it soon. I mean, look at those roots, and there's new growth too on the bottom that's gonna push its way up if it can. But even this section right here, I'm just obsessed with how it's been growing and how full it is. And one of these days, I swear this plant's probably gonna become a floor plant because it is this big and such an aggressive and vigorous grower. The next plant I want to talk about is my syngonium erythrophyllum. Okay, let's take a moment to look at this plant. Oh my goodness. Do you see the leaves? They're so glossy and beautiful. And there are kind of reddish backs to the leaves as well. I mean, look at that. Oh my gosh, so pretty. I'm currently obsessed with the shape of this plant and how it's been growing. It's been giving me a lot of new leaves recently, which is so nice. It's such a relief. And I mean, just look at the way it's trailing. Is that not just so pleasing to the eye? I'm actually a little bit surprised that this is on my favorites list because, so I never actually saw thrips on this plant, but it was next to a lot of other plants in my collection that got thrips. And I did notice that there were a lot of leaves that started really shriveling up and like looking unsightly. So I trimmed honestly like a whole bottom vine that all like looked unwell. But ever since I did that and like I wanted to actually fertilized it too, I like really zhuzhed this plant, treated it along with all of my other plants. So there are no like active thrips on this or anything. I put systemic in the soil. I've been checking it every single day. So like, I mean, it's been several weeks. I'm going to continue treating it just to be safe, but I think that we're like mostly in the clear. But yeah, all that being said, despite the potential that this had thrips or that, you know, that sort of thing, and the fact that honestly for like a whole year, I felt like this plant was not growing super well for me. I wasn't really paying that much attention to it. I wasn't really doing anything. When it did grow, it tended to be runners or like really small leaves. And frankly, I don't really know what changed because I did not change where it was living. I don't know. But in the last few months, it has gradually kind of started liking me again, I guess. It has shifted and started growing better again. It's a little bit inexplicable, but hey, I will take it. As you can see, I mean, there are lots of really fresh leaves in there. I love how there's a mixture of like some really dark leaves and some leaves that are like slightly lighter in color, or like more green. You know, you can even see on the backs of the leaves. I don't know how well you can make it out, but it's like some of the leaves have really dark backs and some of them have, you know, more greenish backs actually. But I honestly really appreciate that blend. I'm wondering if it's like a lighting or nutrient difference or something, or honestly, maybe it's even just like a factor of the seasons changing. I don't really know, but I'll take it because I think it's really, really beautiful. And you know, when I first got this plant, I was so obsessed with it, but I do remember it kind of, I don't know, it lost favor with me for a little while there, but I feel like we're back on track now, which I'm really grateful for because I do really like this plant a lot. Okay, the next plant on my favorites list is my Monstera Peru. And my goodness, guys, this is another plant actually that I did not like for a while. And I'm noticing a theme here. I think that these are my comeback plants. So yeah, that's kind of nice. That happened completely on accident. But as I'm talking about each plant, I'm like, wait a minute. Like each of these had a season where they were not good. So, okay, I mean, they were still like nice plants, but like I just wasn't that excited about them. And now I am. There's been a resurgence. There's been an improvement. So yeah, take that as you will, I guess. But this is my Monstera Peru. Let me give you just a closer look at it. I recently made a video where I chopped up this whole plant. It was growing up a moss pole, but like not like a nice moss pole. It was kind of a gross moldy moss pole, but it was not growing well. It was giving me lots and lots of runners, and I didn't really like the way that it was taking up the space in my room. And I think I just kind of was getting sick of it. I don't know. I wanted a change. So I chopped it up and I propagated it. I was not really expecting it to go well because in my experience, Monstera Peru is very challenging to propagate. And admittedly, I did lose about like half or maybe a quarter of the cuttings. Like they just did not root up, and that's kind of to be expected, but thankfully I had a lot of cuttings. So then I potted them all together like this, all kind of in a bushy pot situation. And guys, I am so obsessed with this. I love it. I love it. I love it. Especially, just look at some of these new leaves. Look at that texture and the glossiness of it. There's a new leaf here. This plant is just growing like crazy. And a few of these leaves are honestly like really huge too. Look at that. And it's such a reptilian texture. It's very, very unique. as far as monstera go, as far as a lot of my other plants, I think there's only one other plant in my collection that has leaves with this kind of texture. And it's one of my anthurium. It's the one that's like a luxuriance hybrid. But other than that, I mean, that's about it. So honestly, it's kind of refreshing. I do really enjoy having various textures in my plant collection. It just helps to break things up a little bit, break up the monotony. Overall, I'm just so relieved that this actually propagated well for me and that is happy and now is a plant that I'm actually excited about because it's different, it's new, it's refreshed, and yeah, this is the monstera peru that I want in my life. Okay, I needed to change the battery on my camera, so if things like shifted all of a sudden, that's what happened. Okay, the last plant that I want to talk about today is my Maranta leuconura erythronera. Oh my goodness, this plant is beautiful. This is also commonly known as the red-veined maranta. Can we just take a moment? Look at how full this like big section is right here. Oh my goodness. I love it so much. And up top, it's got some nice, really sweet looking growth as well. But I mean, the big mama leaves are up front right here. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with this plant. I've been realizing lately that this might be one of my top plants in my collection right now, which is kind of crazy, but like, it just is. Every time I see it, it makes me so happy. It's sitting in my built-in in my dining room. So actually when it's like sitting there, it's a little bit more propped up by the shelf. So it looks kind of like this on the shelf and it looks so pretty. Obviously right now it's kind of like trailing a little bit more, which is still fine, but like I don't like it quite as much. It's a little bit unbalanced, but the way that it's presented on display, I guess, in my collection, it looks more like this. This plant gives so much, but asks for so little. It's kind of wild to me. It's currently putting off so much new growth, and literally, guys, we're in the middle of winter. It's also really not getting that much light. Every time I talk about this plant, I talk about the fact that it is the low light queen. More new growth and more new growth. I'm quite astounded. I don't understand why this plant does so well for me. And I don't know, maybe it's because it's been my collection for at least 3 years. It's been in my collection for over 3 years for sure. And it's just like used to my house and it likes me now, but it was not always this way. Actually, I just did a video where I was reacting to my old houseplant tours, and that video took forever to record and to edit, by the way, so you should go watch it. I mean, you don't have to if you're not interested, but like, kind of, please do, low-key. But it was so interesting to be reminded of how far we've come, how much my plant collection has changed, and how much my plants have changed too, and to realize that like I've had a lot of these plants for 3 years, 4 years, that sort of thing, at least. So yeah, pretty crazy. But this plant I got over 3 years ago because it was in that very first plant tour that was in fall of 2021, and it was looking rough. I had a friend that knew that I liked prayer plants, and he had this plant in his collection and it had spider mites. He didn't know that it had spider mites, but like all he knew is that it just didn't look good and it was suffering. And he was like, Joy, you like plants. Like, do you want to rehab this? Give it a new home and maybe like you can have it basically. And I was like, sure. I did not know what I was doing with this plant initially. I mean, I loved plants that were in the Marantaceae family. I loved Calathea, I loved Capertia, Marantas, all that stuff. And I had quite a few in my house, but it took a while for me to figure out how to make them happy and to not have crispy edges. And I think that I've figured it out somewhat. Sometimes I'm still a little bit like, how? I don't know how differently I'm treating them. But yeah, when I first had this plant, it was in an east-facing window, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think the lighting was okay, but it was drying out pretty quickly. I actually also had it in a terracotta pot, which is like a big no-no when it comes to the Marantaceae family. At least in my experience, I've never had one actually be happy in a terracotta pot. Your experience might be different from mine, but that's just my experience. And yeah, the spider mites did not help. But I think that I just didn't have the watering down. I didn't have like the right soil mix. The lighting was fine, but like, I don't know. I currently have it in a way lower light situation. It's kind of tucked away. It's in a ceramic pot, which I think it really, really loves. It likes to, you know, it doesn't want to be like completely sopping wet all the time, but it doesn't like to dry out quickly. And it's not that I water it a ton. I maybe water it once every 2 weeks, but it never gets curly leaves. As soon as the leaves are like mildly limp or soft, not curly, but just ever so slightly soft. And I can honestly visually tell. It's just because I've had this plant for over 3 years and I just know it. That's when I water it, and then I put it back and it continues on. And again, I don't let it get too crazily root bound or anything like that, because once it gets root bound and it starts drying out, it just gets unhappy. Yeah, I feel like I've rambled on and on about this plant. I also just love the look of it. I love the way that it grows. I love how full it is and like how closely all these leaves grow together. And I will at some point need to chop it and prop it and kind of put it back in the top of the pot. I'm kind of overdue for that, I think, maybe slightly, but I don't really want to touch it because I just love it the way that it is. This plant is just stunning. It's so stunning. I'm obsessed. I will forever be obsessed with this plant. Sometimes it gets underappreciated because it can be a little bit finicky, but if you persevere and keep it in your collection and keep it alive, I think that it will reward the labor that you put into it. I think another reason that it gets overlooked or underrated is that it is really common. You can find it in big box stores and it's so easy to find. And for the longest time, I think that people really were wanting to go after the most expensive plant as like a status symbol, you know, like if you had a bunch of plants that were easily found, it was like, oh, you know, like you can have plants, but like, are you really a plant collector? Like, I just felt like that was a big attitude where it was like the plants that people seemed to like the most were the plants that were expensive and rare. But I actually think that the tide is turning, and I think that that's a really good thing in the plant community, especially as people have been acquiring fewer new plants and like not caring as much about like the rarity of a plant. I don't know, a few years ago, I think I would have been hesitant to be like, oh, this, like I loved this plant and I appreciated it. I wouldn't have as readily called it my favorite plant. And I think that subconsciously part of that was that it's an inexpensive plant, but like honestly, now that it's been in my collection for a long time and I'm also not as in tune with like where the plant market is at, that kind of subconscious bias isn't there anymore. And I just see the plant objectively for what it is and I love it. So I'm grateful for that. Well, those are all the plants I'm going to talk about today. Really fast though, I do want to update you about these kinds of videos. So I do enjoy making favorites videos like this because it's fun to, like I said at the beginning of the video, have an excuse to talk about plants I'm liking. However, I've been thinking about this for the last few months. So I feel like I've done these favorites videos like this, like monthly favorites videos for the past 2 years. Before that, in my first year on YouTube, I actually did more like seasonal favorites. So I would do a favorites video, you know, one for fall, one for summer, one for spring, one for winter. I went kind of backwards there, but you know what I mean. And I mostly did that because I was only really putting out like 4 videos a month. And so I felt like, okay, well, having a quarter of my videos being like the same exact type of video like felt a little bit limiting, especially if I didn't want to skip a month. I'm very much a completionist. I'm not really into like skipping months and things like this. I know that you can, like there's nothing preventing you from that, but I don't know, like there's like a thing in my brain that says like, you have to do every single month if you're going to do it. It's like an all or nothing thing. But then, you know, I switched to doing monthly favorites videos because again, like I really liked it. There were a lot of plants I wanted to talk about and I was making 5 or 6 videos in a month. So it felt a little bit less like constraining. Like I could kind of get all the content out that I needed to. But lately I have been getting back to the like 3 or 4 videos a month rhythm because of where I'm at in life right now. I thought that I would be making more videos more consistently, but that's just not the case right now. Sometimes it's a little bit exhausting to like go around and have to pick out, okay, these are like my favorite plants of the month when, you know, maybe I don't really have any plants that are super standing out to me. That hasn't really happened a lot of months, but I think the last couple of months it's been a little bit more challenging for me to like genuinely find plants that I'm super excited about because I don't want it to be like the same 10 plants over and over again because those are the plants that are doing well, those are the plants that I'm excited about. So in an effort to remain genuine and in an effort to like not get burnt out on making this type of content, to kind of create more space and time for the other ideas that I have, because this basically takes up like one of my video slots every single month in terms of filming and editing time. Yeah, long story short, I think starting in the new year, I am going to switch to the seasonal favorites videos, and I still want to find a way to feature plants in my collection, maybe not every single month, but make it more like categorical, such as the plants in my collection that are this thing, or my top 5 Hoya plants of the month that I'm featuring that aren't necessarily my favorites, but that I just haven't talked about in a while. Those are just some of my ideas of like ways to continue showing you guys plants in my collection without it being like having the pressure of it being, these are my favorite plants this month. I would love feedback on that. So if you are absolutely obsessed with these favorite videos and you are like chomping at the bit to watch them every single month, let me know and I'll like reconsider maybe. But if you would prefer some of that other type of content or a little bit more variety in content, let me know. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Especially let me know what your favorite plants have been this December, in the thick of winter, the thick of holiday season, all that stuff. So yeah, I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye. Especially to Natalie because she waves back.